or should I say plain thieves.
Don't make me do the old soft shoe shuffle.
I don't like what you're wearing, or the company you keep. How have you managed that? You're not exactly their Aryan archetype.
Spies from another dimension. As I said to Mr. Barton, think of them as Russia, but bigger.
You're not the only one who can do classic.
Better written. Pillar of Hope. Better written. Very cliche. Better written. Pillar of Hope. Better written. Very cliche. But I still felt that story was fairly boring.
That's all this year is.
You don't even have to watch it in order.
Better written. Very cliche.
Who cares about Doctor Who? Series 12, Episode 2, Spyfall, Part 2.
2 episodes in less than a week. Some could say we're in the golden age of content right now. Written again by showrunner Chris Chibnall, this episode is definitely one to give rise to opinions. Voicing those opinions this week will be myself, Neo from Australia. Back now with my regular mic after a jaunt through the United Kingdom in which Ingiga lives, living to be livid, and there's also Mirrors from America, sporting enough takes for 2.
Yeah.
Now, usually I give a very quick summary of episodes at this point, but for this one, I would like to hear you guys try and give one off the top of your head.
You want to go first, or should I?
I'll give it a shot. So let me see. Oh fuck. The Doctor has to. Okay. The Doctor recruits 2 famous women to do a chase through history to undermine the machinations of the new master who wants to help Lenny Henry turn humanity into hard drives because he really hates his mum, and and fucking it's the let's do the time war again. There you go.
And of course, it's revealed at the start that the next step in the Master's plan is crashing this plane with no survivors, but they get out of it.
Oh shit! Yeah, the blink thing as well. Yeah, so much going on.
There is a ton of stuff going on in this episode.
I feel like we buried the lead that the Master was a Nazi. This episode, he was parading around disguised as a white Nazi officer.
This episode.
Well, I mean, it was literal. It was an actual Nazi uniform. And then when the Doctor thwarted his plan, she turned off his ethnicity filter and told the real Nazis he's a British spy. 77 years later, after who knows what.
After 77 years in a sodding concentration camp.
Yeah, after that is when he gets his message to the Doctor that he blew up Gallifrey because they messed around with a kid, the timeless child.
Mm-hmm.
And the fam were in this ep. Did we mention the fam? Graham danced with his laser shoes.
We did not mention the fam at all, and I think for good reason.
After the first episode, I assumed that maybe they would keep going with the plot about Vor and what's going on there, but it seems like they just went really soft on the Vor, which is a shame because I prefer hard Vor.
Yeah, Vor is more powerful than most nations.
Yeah, all we got was that big monologue near the end about how tech companies are bad and stuff, which is like, it's a bit low-hanging fruit, I'd say, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Just my thought.
And it's hard. It makes perfect sense to pair this with an episode about spies and espionage, but there's absolutely no engagement with that idea.
See, as you were saying that sentence, I even thought you could also link it to that sort of non-theme of fascism as well. Because these things do connect, social media, neo-fascism, resurgence and stuff, and espionage, blah, 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 and all those things. But the episode just doesn't make any attempt to draw those things together, which is impressive. Like, it's, you'd have to try to write something that is this close to making sense, but completely refuses to.
No, I really agree with this point, and I'm not even being funny here, but I think the lack of conventional writing, I can't say skill, that's mean. The lack of conventional writing in general in this two-parter is so fascinating. Like, I've been harping on this a bit this week, but in the first part of Spyfall, when we get no setup that the Master's not really a sprinter, but the big reveal that he's the Master is the Doctor saying, hey, I read a thing off screen that you're good at sprinting, and now you just mentioned you're not good at sprinting. You're the Master. Like that, it's fascinating to me because there's no way Chris Chibnall did not think, oh, I could set up the Master being a sprinter thing when 13 Thirst talks about him as O to the fam. Like, there's no way he could not have thought of that. He's a professional writer. He would have thought of this. So why the hell didn't he do it? Why isn't it in the script? It tickles my mind. It's so fascinating. And like in this episode with the disparate thematics, don't you find this interesting that it's so like not how scripts are meant to work, but this is getting produced, on the BBC. It's a huge show. This is real. We're watching it. Why is it so strange?
Bad is the word I was going to use.
Yeah, this whole two-parter, it's essentially a giant shitpost. And this is somehow making it onto the airwaves. And, you say it's fascinating, and yeah, in a sort of morbid way it is, but at the same time, I'm not exactly looking at it as some interesting new frontier of experimental television. It is just shit. It is just shit. There is just... I can't, come up with some great, it's not experimental film. It's just failing at very simple tasks.
Hey, if David Lynch was doing this, we'd all love it.
It's not just audience hostile. It's quality hostile.
Well,
it's reality hostile.
I would say I enjoyed this episode. Like, a lot of it was in the vein of the last 5 minutes of Spyfall Part 1, which I truly enjoyed. And a lot of it... I even enjoyed some of the fam stuff this episode, and I normally hate those guys. But the cutting from Graham's laser tap shoe, old shoe shuffle to like Nazi theatrics is like, this is amazing stuff to actually be on the television. There's a lot to love here. But there were moments where I was back in that Series 11 mode of like, not just this is bad, but this is bad. Like the Doctor, a white blonde woman leaving the newly... the new master to Nazis for that long, and like Mira said, probably to get hauled off to a concentration camp. Like, this is like, you've got to think through this stuff. Like, Chibnall talks a lot about this show being for kids and for being about hope and all that, and like this, you've got it, like the optics of that is like it's weaponizing a person of color's race like against them. Like, I know the master's bad
from a blue-eyed blonde too.
Yeah, I know he's bad, but if you're bringing in actual stuff like the partition or real world Nazis into like Doctor Who, you need to treat it very seriously, because otherwise it
because grates. What they should have had was they should have had the master executing Noor.
Well, the interesting thing is the actress for Noor filmed her death scene. We have an Instagram post from months and months back that has like the call markers for the location or where the concentration camp was, and she's talking about filming it and all that. So they did film an execution scene for her, perhaps with the master presiding over it, and we didn't get it in this episode. Why is that?
Because it would be horrible.
I'm going to say in advance, I don't think they would have had... I don't think whatever that scene was supposed to originally be, I don't think the Master was going to be there, like, presiding over execution. I don't think that even complies with the narrative of the plot. Like, at that point, he'd already been exposed to the Nazis, and you're put in the camp or whatever.
Good point. But at this point, I have no expectations for taste.
I envision it having maybe been conceived as part of some sort of montage, like showing the sad history of what ended up happening to Noor or whatever. But obviously, yes, it would have been in incredibly bad taste, which is why I wanted it so desperately and why I was so heartbroken that they cut it. Like, I was only excited for one thing in this whole series, and it did not even fucking happen, which just sums it all up, really.
Well, Gig, there's so many more exciting things to happen in the future. What about Ruth?
Oh, yeah, that's the point. But before we go into Ruth, I just want to say, if they've got the Dachau scene, like, on the files, they can maybe use it in a later episode, like, in the finale, when they link all the previous characters back together, they can just, maybe, like, on when she's about to be executed, like, Noor sees a vision of, like, the timeless child or something calling out to her.
No, they get the extraction chamber, and they pull Noor out to help with the thing going up, to help against the Stenza in the finale.
Slight problem. Okay, using the extraction chamber would mean acknowledging that Hell Bent happened, which is clearly completely off the table.
Oh, yeah.
That was interesting, because they said Bottle Universe, which Gallifrey is not in anymore. Yeah. Like, that was true as of the 50th special. It's not true as of Hell Bent, where they've relocated to the end of the real main universe.
All over my notes, I have repeated references to "This is Doctor Who for people who didn't watch Capaldi." Not only that, it seems to be Doctor Who for people by people who didn't watch Capaldi.
See, the thing with that Bottle Universe thing, like, obviously, there's two ways we can read that. Either it's a very useful way in which we can pretend that none of Chibnall's era is canon to the rest of the show, or we can say that the Master went to Gallifrey before it left the bubble universe and destroyed it then, meaning that none of Series 9 or indeed the Capaldi era happened at all. It's been erased from time. It's been erased from Doctor Who by the Master right there, right now. Okay, none of the clown arc, none of that ever happened. So yeah,
even if Chris Chibnall obviously watched Capaldi Who. Let's not be silly, but even if he hadn't watched Matt's last episode, in the 50th we have Tom Baker as the curator, who like leads Matt to Gallifrey, saying, Gallifrey falls no more. That in the far future he's succeeded in saving Gallifrey, and Gallifrey's back, and it's a happy ending.
The distant far future of 2 seasons from now.
So it's a very grim, un-Chibnall-y thing to do, to have Gallifrey utterly nuked. For the record, I really like this. I think the show works much better with a dead Gallifrey, and I never liked Moffat bringing it back, even though he did it the best way anyone could. Like, I loved the 50th, but I didn't like that choice, even though he executed it really well. So I'm happy about Gallifrey being destroyed, although the Master doing it is a bit...
bullshit?
It's a bit full-on, yeah.
Again, keeping in mind that this is Doctor Who people who skipped Capaldi, or indeed perhaps Moffat entirely, this would therefore tie in with the Master's comments back in Sound of Drums, I believe, where he says that you must have felt like God doing that.
That's a good point. And the Master clearly hating the Time Lords in The End of Time as well. There actually is interesting continuity with Sim's Master here, lending credence to the idea that this Master comes after Sim, not after Missy. That's all quite interesting.
No. This Master comes after Missy. He actually obliquely addresses that in the scene in Adelaide.
How? Where?
Wow.
He comes in and he says, "When I kill them, I get a little buzz right here in my heart. It's like I'm in the right place, doing what I was made for." This, plus the Timeless Child revelation, is all the explanation Chibnall is going to ever give to us as to why the Master turned evil again.
I mean, okay, this seems like, this whole Master debate, it seems to me like a bit of it's a moot point, because this question of, is he pre-Missy, is he post-Missy? Well, the answer is neither. He simply does not exist in the same reality as Missy. I think trying to reconcile stuff written by, Stephen Moffat, or indeed even RTD really, trying to reconcile any of those old good stories in response to something written by Chris Chibnall is the biggest mugs game on the fucking planet. Why would you bother? Why go back and taint or try to rewrite those great pre-existing stories just for the sake of someone who can't even be bothered to put the resolution of one episode on screen, who can't even be bothered to give the companions any decent moments in this episode other than Graham tap dancing? Let's be serious here.
I think we're overrating the Sim episodes to call them great episodes, but I might be an outlier.
Okay, fair enough. To be fair, there's the Doctor Falls. That's a Sim episode. That's great. So,
is it a Sim episode?
Well, it's an episode with Sim in it, and I think the Sound of Drums is good too. Hell, it's so good that Chibnall ripped it off for this episode as well.
I actually do agree. If only he could have ripped off the last of the Time Lords.
Yeah, now that I would have watched, I mean, maybe there's still time. There's the finale of this season. We can still have, Jodie kind of glowing and floating into the air, forgiving...
The last of the Stenza.
I feel
forgive Tim Shaw as well.
I feel like what was being pulled from the most, rather, was Curse of Fatal Death.
Oh, yeah. 77 years in a sodding sewer.
Bribing people in the past to outsmart traps, and having to live the long way around through history to arrive back at the present plot, and the general comedic tone.
Also a blonde female doctor.
Oh,
True.
Yeah.
I think it is somewhat instructive that a plot point which Moffat wrote in that special as a joke, a special that was kind of parodying Doctor Who and making fun of it, using all that, ridiculous kind of machinations with going back in time and stuff. I think the fact that Chibnall is pulling from that almost directly does not necessarily flatter the ability to take seriously his take on the show. And in general, actually, not just Curse of Fatal Death, but this episode is it's like a sequence of bad cover versions strung together. You've got Blink, you've got Sound of Drums, you've got the Time War, you've got, you've got bits of Rosa in there with, telling historical figures to have hope. It's just all over the place.
Yeah, a long time ago, I said that Saranga Conundrum was a 10 out of 10. And this is what I was talking about. This is the best. This is what Chibnall does when he tries really hard. This weird, fucked up Wedding of River Song thing.
I mean, Wedding of River Song looks like a very coherent, neat framework compared to this. And, see, this take that, like, Chibnall's trying really hard, this is a really ambitious episode. I mean, maybe, but when I look at it, I just think of something that's by someone who, in a certain way, to a certain extent, has given up. Like, this story feels to me like the work of someone who, to a certain extent, has given up on trying to do anything that means anything or has like a meaningful arc. Like even the shit in series 11 with Graham and Ryan, at least there was some degree of, I don't know, work or like it's so like, I mean, when it got to the point when we went from Master and Nazi regalia switching straight to, Graham shooting lasers from his shoes and stuff, that's the point where it just seems like this episode is just, it's a randomly generated episode. It's a stream of non-stop, rapid-fire, random garbage. It is literally like it's like no one's ever seen television before and we're just gonna make it up as we go along. It's like improvisation. It's so freeform and it's like, okay, I'm gonna stop ranting in 2 seconds. But like, how recently everyone's talking about how if you go and see the movie Cats, it feels like your brain's being eaten by worms. Like Cats was completely sane compared to this. Cats was a relaxing like hour or two in the theatre. This shit makes me feel like I'm going insane.
But that's like it's like being on drugs. Like it's not a bad thing. It's like I quite enjoy it now. I never enjoyed Series 11 like this. But I feel like I'm in a state of delirium every time. I was when I was watching both parts of Spyfall, but in a good way. I feel like the episode produces this. It's never uninteresting, and I think that's plenty to ask for. So you're saying that Chibnall Who is better when you're sleep deprived, and not just because it's an excellent sedative, but also because it makes more sense in that state. Its lack of sense plays gentler on the mind.
No, because I watched Series 11 in basically that state and didn't much care for it. This is a totally different animal to Series 11. No episode in Series 11 was like this. Well, maybe it takes you away a little bit. But this is some kind of... I really do wonder what the fuck happened behind the scenes, because up until this point, let me be clear, I've never believed in chaos in Cardiff until I watched these 2 episodes. Because, let me tell you, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Does this story feel like maybe the Master wasn't supposed to be in it until very soon before it was filmed?
I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you envision being there instead? Like, it's not as much of a solid plot to go in its place.
Snatch the Master out and pretty much expand Lenny Henry's role to fill in the gaps. And that feels more like the sort of episode we had back in Series 11. I mean, that's practically arachnids in the UK all over again.
The thing is, in Series 11 it would be a single-parter. This is a 2-parter. How do you stretch that out to fill 2 hours of television? Or was that a last-minute decision as well? I don't know.
I don't know. I just don't feel like... The Master is so poorly matched into this story. He has no place in the plot. His only part in the story is to be something interesting to happen in the past, and, of course, whatever's going on with the ongoing story arc.
I mean, the Timeless Child was seeded since the Ghost Monument, right?
Yeah,
So Chibnall must have known he was going to go full tilt with it at some point in the future, and the Master's main function is to tell us about the Timeless Child.
Yeah.
Right?
Or, was the Timeless Child supposed to be important back in the Ghost Monument?
Yes, it was. I see. I get this shit from Neo as well. Like, they're telling me, like, hey, that wasn't even a thing. The Timeless Child, it was just a random night. No, it's a blatant arc clue. They literally talk about it like the Doctor has memories that she can't access, and she's like, "What do you mean?
Yeah.
What are you seeing?"
It's
It's set up as a mystery, right? Like it is. So of course they flash back to that scene in this episode just to remind you that this is an arc. It's not something that's randomly popped up, even though it might as well have been.
I can't blame them for thinking that people forgot what happened in the Ghost Monument.
Very true. I mean, that would also apply to virtually any of Series 11.
Yeah. But seriously, I don't feel like the Master was supposed to be in this. I feel like he got kludged in. That might explain why they apparently filmed a concentration camp scene and then cut it out at the last minute.
I don't think anything can explain why they filmed a concentration camp.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? It does not feel... Especially what we learned about his casting, too, is a really odd detail that I've just been mulling over for a while. Because again...
So the thing about how he shot, like, really soon after he was cast, right?
Yeah,
something like that?
Filmed. Cast soon before filming. Please don't throw shot around in this context.
Oh, okay. Fine then. That's an interesting, like, maybe, and the different directors for the 2 episodes as well, like, maybe there was some sort of thing, like, they planned to do a historical ep here, sci-fi opener, but then they were like, oh shit, we have to, like, redo this whole thing, let's make it a master story, I don't know. I mean, I find it a bit hard to believe it went that wrong, but I don't know. Neo, you've been strangely silent, like, how are you feeling about all this?
When we say chaos in Cardiff, what exactly are we saying? Like, we got confirmation.
I don't know.
At one point from a person in the know, like actually in the know, not an unreliable spoiler hound, that an issue with Series 12 was scripts coming so late, production was getting delayed. So if the idea is this was happening as early as the beginning, it might make some sense out of like the textual frenzy that is things like the sprinting line not being set up, or elements of the second episode being so slapdash, huge scenes were getting dropped out towards the last minute. You need to have something finished to edit it and kind of fix it up and make it make sense. If you're just producing stuff as it comes, that might explain what I'm loving, like the madcap nonsense of it.
What it reminds me of is the last episode that sort of felt like this. And I like this episode, but it has a lot of similar problems. Was The Angels Take Manhattan, which we know had drastic, enormous issues with production and writing to the point that it was basically filmed as a first draft. That's what this feels like. This doesn't feel like something that was... This doesn't feel like something that it took a year to make. Let me put it that way.
I keep forgetting there was a gap year. Yeah. There was a whole year, which makes it all the stranger that there were delays in the writing and everything. Like, Chibnall's a professional. I know he took his time with Broadchurch, but he always got those episodes finished, you know, and the shows seem to be produced fine. Like, it's genuinely weird. And so I don't want to resort to thinking that, like, Chibnall's a terrible showrunner and he couldn't get the scripts out on time. Like, I don't want to resort to that because I think that's very cheap and kind of paranoia, arrest Chris Chip stuff. But when things are this weird, like, you look for some explanation, and I don't want the explanation to just be that they thought this was good.
I mean, you know, if they did think this was good, they would not be alone, because the reception to this episode has been broadly quite positive. I mean, I'm seeing loads of good reviews for it. It's got 72% on Rotten Tomatoes and shit. Like, people say, oh, it's a thrilling return.
This is, well, I gotta say, this is the best episode since The Waters of Mars, you know?
Credit where due. Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing that makes me ask a question that a very wise man, perhaps even a poet, once asked, which is, what is this medium we call television? And, you know, by extension, more to the point, what does it even mean to watch or enjoy Doctor Who? Like, what is storytelling? Like, what is enjoyment? What is life? Like,
Gig.
It genuinely
baby,
confuses
come on.
me.
Calm down.
What is it?
You're freaking
I
out.
can't help it.
You're freaking out about an episode written by Chris Chibnall.
Yeah, an episode of a children's TV show, no less. But nonetheless, I do find when I read people gushing about how great the chemistry of, you know, the Master and Jodie, or how epic the reveal of Gallifrey's new king was, I find myself really puzzled, because, like, if this is what people consider good Doctor Who, right? I mean, was Doctor Who actually good at any point? Like, it's like a gaslighting thing. I start to feel like I'm going insane. Like, retroactively, it's some Berenstain Bears shit. Was the show ever good?
Like watching Stephen Moffat's Dracula, Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss' Dracula very recently, and, you know, seeing seeing the first 4 or 5 episodes of Years and Years earlier last year.
Oh, yeah, the first 6 episodes of Watchmen, maybe.
It reminds me that there were once, like, proper full-on writers, you know, writing the show, and were always issues, although there were issues to be had with both those guys' runs for sure, but those were actual, real writers writing this show, and that grounds me and it reminds me that this show used to be, if not good, it used to be, proper. But
legitimate.
It used to be on purpose.
Yeah, but
yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I've watched Broadchurch 2 times. I feel like I have a hot take to formulate on the third, but my cold take now is that it was quite a good show, and so like Chibnall seems like a legitimate guy, but yeah, it's so. But I've got to say, is anyone enjoying it the way I am?
I think that a better way to put it would be that whether you're enjoying it ironically or sincerely or as an act of absurdity, you're still enjoying it. It's still fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's funny. Gig, I'm sure even you can agree that at times it's funny.
I did laugh at numerous
yeah.
points during it. But at it, and maybe a little bit with it sometimes, but mostly at it, and also at myself and at the world. Like, it's one of those things, it's like a, life's a comedy kind of thing.
You're also having social, there's a social quality to it. Here we are, we're discussing this crazy crap episode of Doctor Who.
I mean, I've had more fun discussing this with you guys for the last 26 minutes than I have with most of Chibnall Who, right? So,
yeah.
Part of the fun is shitting on it as well.
For all you can say about what's not working, it's working in entertaining us and making us talk, which Series 11 usually failed at.
For all the wrong reasons.
And there's plenty of people who are enjoying it on other levels. I mean, this is going to sound really trite and stupid, and you can imagine Murray Gold music playing while I say all this. I certainly am. Doctor Who means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For some people, it is basically just emotional pornography, It's something that you watch to feel, to get the feels. But, and sometimes for us, maybe it's more about the puzzle box. For me, it honestly is about the puzzle box. And it could be about the fractals in the storytelling or the qualities of the performances. And it's going to have different qualities to different people. And sometimes it's just not the show that you want it to be. I mean, for a long time, it wasn't the show I wanted it to be. But then, when it was the show that I wanted it to be, it got really bad ratings and everybody hated it. So, what do I know?
Well, at least we had it, and that's one of those things, you've got to be at peace with the fact that your preferred version of the show will end at some point or has ended. So, there's no point in getting... I'm not at the stage where I'm really, enervated about this shit anymore. It's just dark and weird and morbidly funny to me and twisted. So, yeah. I still sometimes feel like I'm going insane seeing people gush over it so much, but, that's just me.
My preferred version of the show was the version with said Murray Gold music playing, so I've been scrambling for something to anchor me, and I haven't got it until Spyfall, where just the sheer nonsense of it all is proving really captivating.
Actually, mentioning that, I really felt that Segan stepped up his game this episode. This two-parter, rather. I think because he has something to work off of, Do
you mean the James Bond theme?
Yeah. That,
right,
and then
okay,
there's also musical cues in this and repeating motifs and all sorts of things that just weren't in almost all of Series 11. Even the episodes I liked.
I don't dislike Sagan at all. In fact, I might have listened to his Series 11 album once or twice, but I find his stuff sits, even at its best, it's not being written the way Gold's ostentatious stuff was, and that's fine, but... you miss that stuff. Even Sagan doing a Gold kind of pastiche it's not the same as being screamed at how to feel. I miss that so much.
Yeah, that's another thing. We love that. We love that. And there's people who, for them, that was the single worst part of the last 10 years of Doctor Who. And are they crazy? Gig, shut up.
I was not going to... Okay, yeah.
You were thinking it. I could hear you.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's people out there who like Kef, okay?
Yeah, there's people out there, definitely. Yeah, far away from here who like Kef, absolutely. I was just... it struck me, there's a gold approach to soundtracks, but like Sagan, when he first got announced, he mentioned a big list of his influences, and one of them was Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, right? Who multiple people in this chat love, right? I love Trent Reznor and Atticus. Yeah, they're great, but nonetheless, I find Sagan's approach to that kind of subtle scoring to just be not very satisfying. So I don't know, it's a matter of opinion at the end of the day, but I do not consider Sagan's stuff to be a really major issue with the episodes. There's just so much other shit going on. It's not the most interesting thing to complain about.
What did you think of Ada Lovelace this episode?
They held hands.
Who did?
Ada and the Doctor.
Oh, okay.
They held hands.
Well, I mean, one thing is Ada Lovelace isn't going to think anything about Ada in this episode because she can't remember it happened. Pitifully.
Ironically, I forgot that happened when I rewatched it. God, that was so bad. And she begged not to be mind wiped too.
Yeah, she went full Donna. She's like, please don't do it. And the Doctor just went ice cold, just destroyed it. It was crazy. It's just such a lack of self-awareness there. Honestly, I could forgive, the Doctor, mind-wiping, historical characters or whatever, if there was some sort of, even an attempt to negotiate with it. I don't know, maybe the Doctor could persuade them that it's for the best by being really nice and friendly and then, Pillar of Hope and all that shit, but they don't bother. It's really freaky.
The Doctor didn't mind-wipe Elizabeth I.
Yeah, good point.
I feel like in RTD's days, we weren't as trope interrogatey as this. You could just not mind wipe people and no, you fans wouldn't go, but then how would they blah, blah, blah. It was more of a joke, in the Shakespeare episode. And then Moffat's era was very tone interrogatory, and so we got mind wipes prodded out a lot more. Ultimately we got a huge thing about why they're bad in Hellbent and the pilot. So I don't even understand why draw attention to the discrepancy of these people remembering the Doctor at all. You can just not bring it up. It's
didn't mind wipe Rosa.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to, you're the no one's forcing these elements in the script. You're the one who comes up with saying, "Oh, we got to mind wipe these people." How
about this? Didn't mind wipe Yaz's grandma. And that could actually have serious consequences, considering that's her grandma.
And it strikes me there's a very strange sense of priority going on, because obviously not just this thing of stopping off to mind wipe the historical characters, but the fact that we see a fully realised depiction of the Doctor preparing the plane and the instruction manual for how to write the plane and recording the video for the plane, but we don't see how she defeats the antagonist of the story. It's a sense of just fixating on the most mundane, useless shit that doesn't need to be there, and not caring about the stuff that does need to be there.
If Chibnall wrote Blink, there would be no scene set in 1969. It's so ridiculous. Oh, I got another one for you. Didn't mind wipe Babbage, who took part in the entire story as well, up until
God. I mean, the point at which the historical stuff just got so bizarre for me was when the Doctor took Ada with her into World War II.
I like that.
Why was that necessary? I mean, yeah, okay, it was fun, but it was just why was any of this necessary? And ultimately, it struck me that the whole stuff with Ada and Nor, all of that, the only reason for that is so we can get that girl power moment of them all walking out Avengers Endgame style to face the Master. Yeah. It's hey, sisters doing it for each other, the historical women. Yeah, it's such a tokenistic approach to historical characters, and it just annoys me when you've got stuff that should be treated sensitively, like Nazis and shit, and you're in a story that's just a sprawling 2-hour romp of sheer insanity. It's one of those things that makes me think that actually maybe we shouldn't do Doctor Who anymore. Maybe we should just stop if this is what it is.
But did you not like how the Doctor left Nor unconscious with the floorboards up in a house?
I mean, I've seen speculation that the Doctor essentially led the SS to Nor, and she's the reason that she gets captured and sent to Dachau concentration camp, which I really hope that is not the case. But
on the other hand, they did intercept her transmission to Britain. So
yeah,
fuck.
To avoid dwelling on the sheer darkness of that for a moment, I mean the whole way in which the Doctor dealt with the Master, like the fact that she records him monologuing about how he's gonna backstab his allies this week, and she plays the recording, causing his allies of the week to turn on him and strand him in the forest where he screams "Doctor" as the camera pans away from him. It's such a last week I was talking about how this use of the Master felt like a sort of reversion to that sort of cheap kind of Monster of the Week form of the character, and this is just so that.
Yeah.
They've just gone like, okay, what's the most cliched way of stopping the Master? And they've just done that. And it's just, what is the fucking point of bringing back this character if you can't even iterate on the kind of storytelling we were getting decades ago?
fun.
I mean, sure, if this story transmitted in like 1973, it would be considered like some kind of pioneering work of brilliance, and then decades later it'd be reevaluated as a bit shit, actually. But it's 2020. It's 2020. We've moved on.
You've got to watch it in a vacuum and have fun with it.
You gotta turn off your brain, Gig.
I wish I could turn off my brain.
It's
watching this show.
2020.
It makes me want to turn off my brain, as well as the rest of my vital organs, to be quite frank.
The show is over. You have 3 minutes to prepare.
Oh my god, that reminds me. The scenes with Yaz's family in this episode. How pointless. I mean, there was
Conspiracy.
like shots of like her dad, her mum, her sister, like the whole. Yeah. The dad mentions conspiracies again. That's his character trait. And
it's
Yaz got her Martha scene where killing her family and like, we're wanted fugitives, which they didn't resolve at the end. By the way, they're still wanted fugitives.
Well, no, the guy who made them wanted fugitives then tried to destroy the world, maybe. It's hard to say. And then got an extraction. That guy getting everything screwed up, I'm totally fine with him not showing up. Or with them. I don't know about him getting away at the end. That was kind of stupid, but I'm fine with the idea that that's resolved.
Do you know, it struck me, that whole moment when the Doctor, like, defeats the plan and the humanity reformatting thing shuts down about, like, 30 seconds after starting up, and the Master, kind of petulantly goes, "Arr," a bit, and Lenny Henry immediately, "Oh shit, extraction team now," and just books it out of there. Like, it was such, like, Ranscore on steroids
Yeah,
vibes.
it was Series 11.
Yeah, in that episode, you get the Earth about to get, destroyed.
No more witch
10 seconds
hunts.
later. Like, the stakes just go from 1,000 then back to 0 in no time at all, and it was just that again.
It's like when Krasko gets zapped out, like, 15 minutes before the end of that episode.
I think the Doctor's line that, like, fascism's over soon, don't worry about it, reads oddly when Krasko's, like, from loads and loads and loads of time into the future, and we know, like, they're still fascisting about.
For that matter, yeah, the fam is only, like, 80 years into the future.
I mean, I think it reads oddly about a month after Boris Johnson won the general election, but hey, that's just my opinion. No, I mean, obviously, it's just crap in general. Like, if you go back to World War II, and all you can think to say on that front, all you can surmise from this setting as like as an era, as a period, as like a history in which to comment is, "Ooh, it's such dark times, but there is light. Darkness never sustains." Like, holy fucking shit! Like, what's even the point? I'm so fucking done with all of this.
Are we thinking the Kisavin, the white glowy aliens, are they the Time Lords that somehow got squirreled away to another dimension before the nuking or something? I've seen this idea floated.
No.
They're the Vord, obviously. Look at their heads.
People have been saying this exact same thing about every newly introduced alien since, the Weeping Angels, if not further back. It's never the Time Lords. The Time Lords are the Time Lords, and they're off in the future or the afterlife or whatever.
They're in the Matrix now.
Yeah.
In the Neversphere.
Yeah, it doesn't... It's never going to be the Time Lords.
Well,
the monks are not the Time Lords.
Last week, when we had the Kasavins kind of being these white blobs and phasing through walls and stuff, and we saw their weirdly shaped heads, I was sure that at some point...
They're also not... The Boneless are also not the Time Lords.
Yeah, but they just stayed as white blobs, and they don't even do the cool wall phasing thing in this episode, so they actually got worse as a monster. They're sniper bot tier now. They don't even get any more funny, villain lines like, "Ooh, beyond your understanding, ooh, booyah." They don't even get any more of that. It's just, they're so boring.
calm down, Jesus Christ.
Look, okay. Let me admit here, I've never laid into an episode like this on the podcast before, and I'm really enjoying it. So just, let me vibe. You know,
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm done now. So someone else say something.
What did we think of the Master Needle scene, telling the Doctor to kneel and submit and such?
Well, I actually really liked that because in that scene we get the Master sort of proving not just to the Doctor but almost to himself that he really is what he's always said he was. You know, that earlier I said that's sort of their response to Missy. That's really the part where it fully comes together, and also it's hot.
I mean, to a certain extent, it's yet another cover version of the same scene from Sound of Drums, but with kneeling added now. Which, okay, fair. It's an innovation, seeing the Doctor actually.
On the downside, it is more het.
Yes, it is. That's a big. I mean, it seems like a big direction for the Master in this story is basically just play it as he really wants to bang the Doctor in every single scene they have together, and that's just the whole relationship now. It annoys me actually because part of it
now.
Okay. One thing. Something that annoyed me back in the Missy days was that, like, obviously it wasn't really Missy, the fault of Moffat or Missy in particular, but that, like, they only got as far as kissing on the lips once it was like a relationship, right? Like once it was a man and a woman, and the fact that we're a female Doctor now, but then we're back to a male Master, so it's still het, and it's like, why? No, I just want some gay tension with the Doctor and the Master.
That's true.
Again.
It should have
Why
been.
can't we get this back? It's so unfair.
Should have been a female Master.
In this showrunner's era, I don't think you'd really want that. I think that would spell certain doom
Good point.
for the characters.
I mean, to be fair, if it meant they both died and regenerated, that might be a good thing. So.
So why didn't Graham's laser shoe go off when he stomped on the phone?
He wasn't doing the shoe shuffle yet.
No, he was wearing the same shoes. I watched. He
Maybe
was doing the shuffle.
The impact.
You know
The
what?
phone
That's
absorbed
probably
the impact, and
that must be it. That's the only thing that makes sense.
You know, that soft shoe shuffle line was genuinely great. It's Graham's first great moment, like, as a character. Maybe Bradley Walsh's first great moment as an actor as well. Maybe even Chibnall's first great moment as a writer. Just a fantastic line. It's just funny. Like, it's fucking
that, but unironically.
Easily iconic. You know, I think the laser shoe shit is the only part of this episode that will stay with me for, like, longer than a few months. Oh dear. You know, the fact that we go from that to the ending of this episode where the Doctor is, you know, throwing her doohickey across the TARDIS room because she just found out that her whole, like, race has been exterminated again. And then she pulls that face at the camera with, like, kind of quivering lips for a bit, and it's like, ooh, really dark, such angst.
Can I say, I loved that moment for one ridiculous reason, which is that we then get the audio of the next scene of the fam talking to her. And for just a second, it seems like they were there during the whole scene with the Master's hologram.
It's like a bus doing Arrested Development thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that final scene with the companions, it seems like that's so flagged up as a payoff to some whole thing of, ooh, the Doctor's finally going to open up about her secret history to the fam, who have been, you know, just so curious about her. And then, like, she tells them, and she's like, any questions? And we get Ryan silent, Yaz is silent, and Graham's like, loads. And then they just don't continue.
She gives them basically about as much as Tennant gave those people on the crashing Titanic.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, in my notes I have here. Any questions? Loads. Start with, right? What was the thing for midnight? And was that really you from the future as the curator? And what's going on with... So who was the other, Doc?
And who is the timeless child? That's a real question. Yeah. We haven't talked about Ruth yet. We need to get onto that at some point.
Oh god, we should wait. We should hold off on Ruth until we know that it's actually happening.
Yeah, but wow.
So the moment we get a character in the Jejune episode called Ruth, then we can go full tilt on the Ruth.
Just like freaking out about Sasha showing up in the last episode.
Yeah. Okay, I'm down. Oh, it's gonna be great.
But
back
to the Master. I love him. I love this Master.
Same.
Sasha Dewan just elevates material So I'm really looking forward to this master having an actually decent writer sometime in the future.
Material, is that because he's really good at acting or because he's cute or both?
Both. Have you seen Iron Fist? You don't have to. That was a stupid question.
I've seen clips from Iron Fist where he has his head shaven.
Yeah, I apologize for having asked if you'd even watched it, because...
Can I just say, I really don't like it when his head is shaven, so when they did that halfway through this episode, it verged the shit out of me. I much prefer him with luscious Matt Smith-esque locks.
Oh yeah, the Vinay poof.
Yeah. This chat is getting very thirsty. I think we should maybe dial it back a bit.
I'll like it. Well, on my tongue, how to put this?
Okay, so
go on, Neo. Go on.
I don't have that much to say on that front, surely, but I really enjoy his acting. I think it's a really fun performance. I like that the actor's really thought about it, like in his interviews and stuff. He's really into the character, and he's watching past episodes and he's trying to work out where he can take this. And bless him with the scripts he's getting, but like he's doing his thing. It's really working for me. I find him hugely entertaining. He feels very varied.
He's bringing a lot to the character. I mean, I know you guys were complaining about him jumping around clapping last episode. I like that. He does a bit of that sort of thing in this, like when he's growling or when he's banging his head. It's very amusing. But he's also bringing all these other weird little tricks and treats to the role, like when he does the German 3 while talking about things being win-win-win. I thought that was a beautiful little reference, especially considering they ripped off an entire scene from Inglourious Bastards earlier on in the episode.
I think with his master in general, I want there to be more of an obviously coherent take that solidifies it all. Like I think if he played up the whole kind of little freaky hermit incel aspect that I kind of get from him a little bit, like I would love that. I think, and that would be like a genuinely kind of new take as well. I think at the moment it's still a bit vague, a bit wibbly wobbly. Like he screams, he looks damaged, and he looks really like sad when he talks about the time as a child, and or he gets really angry at stuff. But I mean, yeah, he's doing it well, but I'm just not that interested in what he's doing, And when they revealed his costume in those promo photos and he dresses like Hartnell, I'm like, what the fuck? Where did that come from?
It's a past thing. Doesn't that make you happy? It's like an old thing, but it's...
It reminds me of it reminds me actually of the Dream Lord showing up in a
good catch,
showing up in a bow tie, and then later on a robe.
I could totally see Chibnall retconning the Dream Lord to have been this master or something somehow.
That would be so sad.
Can you imagine if when the master next turns up, he's wearing like a parody of Jodie's costume, like with the rainbow?
I would actually really like that. I would. Well, actually, I suppose now that I think about it, he was kind of wearing a parody of her costume in this episode, what with the really long coat. Only his had like these silver lapels on it. I didn't get a good look at them.
Wait, do you mean when he was wearing the
pretty sure that it was? Yeah, I was pretty sure there was something. I'm pretty sure that in that scene he was dressed as a specific reference to Jodie Whittaker's doctor.
Okay, I think I get where you're going with this. That's quite a take. Neo, you were saying something before you were rudely interrupted. Please enlighten us.
This is a thing with... It's interesting because with Sim, this didn't work for me so much, but there's a type of acting which is just like super frantic, frenzied, over-the-top, ostentatious, attention-grabbing.
The David Tennant school of acting.
It's not. It's a specific thing with villains. Sim did this kind of thing, and like we see Jared Leto do it with the Joker, and it's just like going completely insane.
Tenet actually does do that a lot, yeah.
Abandoning all...
The David Tennant and Harry Potter school of acting.
Yeah. Tenet and Harry Potter, absolutely. And I think that's just... Some people have no time for that, and like it just doesn't amuse or entertain them. I love it with what Sasha's doing. It's really working for me here. With Sim, it amused me, but I kind of took the show more seriously then, and so like that character didn't always work for me. But now, what I'm just looking for bright, shiny things on the screen. Like his mania is just... It's beautiful to me. It's entertaining. It's a bright, fun distraction. It's great.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, when he burst in with the top hat and just started screaming at everyone like "Don't move!" Like I was genuinely enjoying that. Like it's
the incredible shrinking lady.
Yeah, it was just so utterly unhinged at that moment that I was actually like I was totally into it. Like I mean, I felt it kind of is sort of whatever. Like, I feel very bleh about everything, but like just that little moment was very fun. And also, if he's dressing up in ridiculous costumes, absolutely play that up more, because that just enhances the stupidity.
I do like that. He wore a different costume in every scene in this two-parter, didn't he?
More or less. I think what I'm really feeling with him here is Eric Roberts from the Paul McGann TV movie. Like,
in a good way.
Yeah. They're like the
dresses for the occasion.
The crazy costumes, dressing for the occasion, like the weird over-the-topness of how he's playing.
Imagine him in Time Lord robes like Eric Roberts at the Climax TV movie. Oh my god.
Oh god, I can't wait.
That was so uncalled for. But yes.
Hey, I've got a new microphone. I got to do that every now and then.
Yeah. I can think of a master costume I'd like to see Sasha in. John Sim in his first scene in The End of Time, Part 1, when he's getting resurrected by Lucy.
Oh, yeah, that's the one Neo wants to see too.
Right, moving on. Moving swiftly on.
I do want to see Jodie tied up again, like Tennant was back in The End of Time. That would be really good.
Worst Uber ever.
Oh God. Fuck.
Okay, just to try and briefly write this back onto talking about the episode, one of the observations I've got down here is that Chibnall free association strings together bits of like fragments and cliches of New Who episodes to produce something that feels a bit like a parody of what people who don't watch the show think it's like. Like, I think if someone hadn't watched Doctor Who but they really didn't like the sound of it and they watched this, it would vindicate them so utterly, because it just leans into all those incredibly kind of crap aspects of Doctor Who as a concept. Like, let's just, heritage theme park version of history. Let's just play about with Nazis. Yeah, it's just the very superficial takes on everything. The kind of, I went back in time and did this. Plot, excuse, get out. It's
love a laminator.
Pointless. Yeah, incredibly kind of crude humour all over the place. The villain just disappears. All that sort of thing. It's just, it's a bit like, it's almost, and those Curse of Fatal Death influences are kind of informed that sense of it being like a parody almost. It's so crazy how Chibnall has fast forwarded to this of all things.
You're not the only one that can do classic.
Yeah. A lot of this episode felt like a very intentional Moffat pastiche, not just the, out of order time loop storytelling. Yeah, but also, like, the two historical settings we see, 1800s and World War II. That's...
Ooh, good point. Those are key Moffat ones, aren't they?
There's one
Damn.
Here, actually, a whole bunch. The time loops, the World War II setting, the continuity references, and the Doctor talking to herself all label this as a Moffat pastiche. I wrote that during the first scene, I think, when she's sort of heaven-scenting to herself.
Yeah. Actually, that gave me Adult Life Skills vibe when she's doing the thumb puppet thing and sort of talking to herself that as well. But yeah, okay. But yeah, that was a very kind of Chib does heaven sent, and it went exactly as you'd expect Chib does heaven sent to go. So there's
a thought. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, don't even. Oh. Yeah.
Can you imagine if he does that at some point, like his final episode? Just Jodie for the whole episode, just Chibnall. Just pure, unfiltered Chib Kino. Like, I'm so down for that.
There's, but actually, speaking of Heaven Sent and Hellbent earlier, there is one part of this episode that does seem like it's intended for people who watched the Capaldi era, aside from maybe reading too much into what the Master talks about earlier, is at the end, the thing that she pulls out of her coat that I guess he somehow planted on her, even though she wasn't wearing those clothes at the time, I'm almost positive that that's a confession dial. Because look at it. It
just looked like a weird orange gem, like everything else.
It's a circle, and it talks to her, and I think it's a confession dial.
I think that's a reach.
Speaking of confessions, I loved Lenny Henry's character because it felt like a big miscast. Like, his demeanor really did not fit like this Steve Jobs Zuckerberg type of character at all, and like he didn't even seem to be playing it like that. He was playing him kind of flatter and a bit barkier, and I was quite enjoying that. I wish we got into the climax with him in the actual episode.
There was a line he had which was amazing, which was hello friends, or should I say plain thieves. That needs to go in the logbook of classic Chibnall lines.
It's very Bond parody, fittingly for this. He's not playing Mark Zuckerberg. He's playing Yaphet Kotto in Live and Let Die.
Yeah. It's, well, you know, speaking of James Bond, think of them as Russia, but bigger.
Oh my god. What did Chibnall mean by this? Was that just one of those like Russiagate kind of things where we're just Russophobic now? That's our basic modus operandi default for modern liberal culture. We just shit on Russia every
Oh my
time,
god, I know what it is. It could be espionage aimed at us by Russians.
Oh my god. Do you think Vor was behind Jack Robertson and his campaign to become president?
Well, that episode did feature Vor, so...
Oh yeah, it did. It actually did as well. This one didn't, unfortunately, but can't win them all.
I feel like a lot of the politically misjudged things in series 11 and 12 sting, but when you actually be pulling it to Russia like that, it kind of hurts a bit more directly.
I've always thought that you guys were very reasonable. I love that line. I saw people complaining about that line. Come on, that's funny.
Yeah.
I know it's dark humor, but it's funny.
The whole Nazi master thing. I mean, you know, the fact that Chibnall decides that our first experience of a Time Lord going through racism is a
yeah, it is, isn't it?
getting attacked by the Nazis. Okay, I will say one thing in maybe defense of this is that there's a certain message you could maybe show with like a person of color main character, villainous character, throwing their lot in with white supremacists, because that happens in real life. Okay, you've got all kinds of figures like that in real life. Yeah, you know, Candace Owens, that sort of person, that happens, and you know, in the end, the white supremacists turn on them. That's what happens. But the problem with trying to do that here is that the Master is a magic alien, so it's just like, and you know, and he gets exposed because the Doctor turns off his magic white filter or something. So it's just like
his white face
resonance to that just vanishes. Yeah,
and
his white face.
And it seems
People
like
who wear masks are dangerous.
It seems like it hurts him too. Did you notice that when she turns it off? He goes, "Ah!"
His face, yeah. Okay, I have to say, the Doctor kind of dismissing Ada and Nora at the end, it just reminded me of the Ux, except instead of telling them to keep faith, she's telling them to keep hope. It was just Ranscore, like, right back in that mode. I was just, oh god, I just fucking can't anymore.
I think expecting the Smiths to remember what the Ux are is a big ask.
The scene where the brief flash we get of presumably the timeless child standing presumably in front of the Pillar of Hope, the voice whispering the timeless child sounds kind of like a Dalek, so I guess that's where
it's
this
just the
going.
remnants again from the Ghost Monument.
So I think it's going to be the Nightmare Child.
Oh, do you mean that really big Dalek?
Yes.
Nice.
That really big Dalek, piloted by Courtney. Yes.
Yeah. How will the Master get out of this one, do you think?
Through maximum carnage.
The scene with... I know we said we were going to finish off, but the speech that he gives at the end, the Kino speech, is so bad. It's so badly written and badly directed. It feels like a David Dakota film. Again, bringing back Eric Roberts.
You kept clicking agree.
It's just like, oh, you gave us your data.
And why did it take the Doctor's virus so long to kick in?
What were his motivations? Why did he want to make humans into hard drives again? Who's going to be using these? What systems was he talking about? Was there some sort of advanced AI that was going to be using these hard drives? Like,
why were the Kasavin kidnapping people from the past? And also, they keep saying that they have sleeper agents. Can they take human form? And
why were the Kasavin working with Lenny Henry? How did their interests align at all? Did the Kasavin want human hard drives?
They're also trying to take over the whole universe, and at the end, the Doctor says this planet is off limits, so presumably free reign on the rest of the universe.
I name you the Pointless. That seems to have saved the episode.
I think the Kasavin stuff makes sense, because wanting human hard drives and secretly being the Time Lords, they just want to redo the Matrix.
Better written. Pillar of Hope. Better written. Very cliche. Better written. Pillar of Hope. Better written. Very cliche. Better written. Pillar of Hope. Better written. Very cliche. Better written. Pillar of Hope. Better written. Very cliche. But I still felt that that story was fairly boring.
That's all this year is.
You don't even have to watch it in order.
Better written, very cliche.